Sourcing from China is dying. I've been here in Central Asia for more than 7 years because, frankly, I saw the writing on the wall. If you want to start, or if you are selling online, you're going to have to learn some key factors that are going to help you build more resilience into your sourcing, because Alibaba just won't cut it anymore. And no, I'm not talking about buying containers of anything or looking all around the world for some special magical place that can give you the same. There's another way altogether. What I'm referring to is a little lesser known trick that I picked up from one of the big guys on one of my sourcing trips to China about 10 years ago. And believe it or not, it works and it's applicable to today. But most of us don't know that it's available for doing even light bulk shipment, and it is absolutely resilient to any changes that come on the political side that can beat tariffs and duties and all of that kind of stuff, so that you can still keep sourcing the way you want to, regardless of where you do it from. So every year I go out to this thing called the Canton Fair. It's a thing that they have inside of Guangzhou, China, which Guangzhou used to be called Canton, is the big industrial space for China, at least at the time back in the day it was. 80 years or so, they've been doing this thing twice a year, still do it now. Every manufacturer from China comes down here. 3 weeks long. Each session is 5 hours. 5 days. And in that 5 days, they have so many people come in that if you were to walk this entire facility, I've tried it, I've done it several times. You can start on a Monday, end on a Friday, walk from 9 a.m. all the way to 5 p.m., and you will not cover everything that's there. It's an amazing facility. And then every single week they switch it out with brand new people and then switch it out again. I go down there to figure out what does China have to offer, as well as look for products that I have that I know we need to source. And I've been doing this for about maybe 15, 20 years. This one year I go there and there's this gentleman. When I get finished, I'm tired, exhausted. The taxi queue is ridiculous. They have to sit there for 3 hours in order to catch a taxi if you leave out too late, and I did. And so I decided to double back and get something to drink. And while I was there, I met another guy from the United States. And he was there doing sourcing. And as I was talking to him about my frustration around some of the tariffs and the duties, and at the time, we were really referring to the anti-disposal fees. And see, you'll hear a lot about tariffs and duties, but you have to be careful because there's also anti-disposal fees as well. For example, at the time, it was solar panels, and solar panels were like 5 cents, like per, cell inside of China. United States, it was like $2. So in order to offset this, the Obama administration charged $1.35 per cell anti-disposal fee for shipping into the United States, which made it go from 5 cents to $1.40, if you can imagine. It's absolutely ridiculous. So as soon as you walk up to the folks talking about solar panels, they immediately say, oh no, this is not for you. So I was explaining this and I'm complaining, and the guy was like, oh yeah, a lot of the Chinese manufacturers, they've moved to Vietnam. And the ones that are in Vietnam, you of course don't have anti-disposal fees, because big trick and big thing is that the tariffs, the duties, and when we're talking about tariffs and duties, you should think about the Chinese tariffs are what's called CBP 301 and 201. Those are the rules, the Custom Borders Patrol 301 and 201. If you want to look them up, do a Google search for CBP 301 and CBP 201. You can find your product and see exactly how much they charge. It's usually a base tariff that the country has, that the United States will have, and then secondarily there is a Chinese tariff on top of it that's mentioned in 201 or 301 outside of the base tariffs. So essentially, he was telling me that Vietnam, of course, was not, at the time there was no 301 or 201, they were not subject to the same fees. So somewhere around the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, he mentions how people are using Vietnam to cheat the system. And it makes it aware that it's really hard just because to tax someone based on their country of origin. But it's really easy for someone from a country, especially a nearby country, to just cross a border, hire people at the same rate, and then ship things in and then assemble a product in such a way or reestablish a supply chain that makes it classified as being from that new country. And this is an old trick. I mean, if you go through, I had a wonderful friend who works inside of customs and duties and tariffs, and she does intake. And she says, look, you have to not just deal with the customs law, but you have to also deal with the case law from the customs law. Now, I'm breaking this down for you, and I'm telling you this is really powerful because a lot of us, we ship in, and the way we do it is by going through like Alibaba Express or doing drop shipping. And when you do that, you're now under what's called, and you can write this down, CBP 321. CBP 321 is Custom Border Patrol Law 321, which is called de minimis value. De minimis value means it's too small or too trivial for the law to care about it. This was raised by Congress under the Obama administration from $200 to $800. And the conditions are that it is shipped to one human being in the United States, one citizen of the US, and it comes from anywhere in the world, and it's under $800. And there are no taxes, no tariffs, no duties. It'll come straight to your house right away. You can ship it through the post office. This is what Temu, Xi'an, all of these big companies have been using to get in. But what we have seen today was that not only did President Donald Trump extend 301, 201 by adding additional 10% tariffs on China, but he said that China was exempt from 321. That's huge. And I know a lot of people don't understand that, but what it means is that if you order from AliExpress, if you order from any of these other guys, if it comes from China, it's not going to make it in. That's why the post office stopped shipping everything from China and Hong Kong for an entire half a day, because they had to completely reroute the packages so they could go through customs so they could be charged appropriately. And a lot of people didn't understand that that's what happened. But Temu and Xi'an lost 40% of their sales in 3 days after losing that access. And they increased their prices on their website by 60% immediately after. That's how serious it was. And you should know that Temu and Xi'an ship 75% of all de minimis value shipments into the United States. So this is a huge thing. It's not a small thing. It's really big. But in it, there's a little trick. And right now, I'm sitting in Kazakhstan. One of our offices, our sourcing office for Besco, is here in Kazakhstan. And we did that because we knew from the day I met the guy who told me about Vietnam that we should do something to prepare for a future where global trade was not as open as it had been. And that's why we first came to Kazakhstan and set up our office, because A, we knew that the new Silk Road, and if you don't know about that, that's China's $20 trillion project that they've already deployed almost 10 trillion into, of creating roads and highways all over the world. All, basically it used to be Silk Road, and modernizing the crap out of it. Okay. But we knew that that was coming along. We knew the power of BRICS because it had just started about 15 years ago. And we knew the power of the shift between the G7 and E7 countries. Those are the countries that are typically Western versus the countries that are had been considered second world countries. And we knew that shift was happening. And we knew that the United States had no choice but to start to build a construct around isolationism in order to preserve American manufacturing and in order to preserve American prices and shipping. It's really ugly, but it was an inevitable outcome. So we also knew that Kazakhstan was in the center of Asia, borders with China, largest country that borders with China, largest country in the world to border with Russia. And it also borders with Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, all the stands. And then it's right next to Turkey and the Golden Key, which is the big passage where ships can pass through and go back right through the Strait of Gibraltar and land in either New York port or Savannah. Now, logistics is important. And one of the things that I'm just going to stop for a second and give you a hip to, if you made it this far, then it's really good, because I've got little nuggets I'm going to drop all along the way. And you really want to grab these nuggets. The first one I will tell you is realtimemaritime.com. So go online, do a Google search for Real Time Maritime. I'm not getting paid anything to say that to you. I'm saying it to you because it'll allow you to see all 255,000 ships that are on the water in real time. And you can understand the capacity, the movement of the ships, and understand how it takes things to get to you. If you order like a whole pallet of something or anything of that from another country, it's very important, very significant. The other one, you can look at real-time air traffic. It'll show you the same, but with planes, and that'll also let you know about the congestion and the amount of movement that happens. You really have to try to have at least a basic understanding of logistics before you just jump into sourcing. So it's enough to just go on Alibaba, or I can't even name all of them. The Gate, there's a bunch of them. But the whole point is that it's enough to know, and it doesn't matter if you ship to India or China or whatever. You really need to pay attention to logistics and understand how things get to you. And right now, it's more important than ever. Because retaliatory tariffs, which is what we have now, essentially you charge us something for something, then America will charge you the same for the same get in, is very serious. And despite all of the rigmarole, tariffs are paid by you. They ship the product at their price, and you pay the Custom Borders Patrol, or what's soon to be not the IRS, but the ERS, the External Revenue Service. You'll be the one paying them. I don't care who tells you what, you're going to be paying that when you bring in your product. Believe it when you get the bill. Okay? So you need a second way. Now, I'm just kind of laying out the rules and the factors and the things that actually inhibit. So let's get back to the Vietnam piece. Essentially, there are countries that you can take product in, and normally what you need to do is you have to identify whether or not this product is true place of origin. So you could take a product from China, put it inside somewhere else, and then try to ship it to the US. But there's plenty of case law in the Customs Border Patrol that says, hey, no, that's not from the United States. You just played tricky. One of the really key rulings that I think I read through was very interesting to me, because it asked if you actually transform the product. So there was a company selling clocks. They were selling alarm clocks. They were buying some of the components from China and then taking it and putting it together in Indonesia and then shipping it to the United States. And Customs Borders Patrol said, no, that product is from China, because when you ship the parts you intended to put together a clock, and they all came from China, and there's no substantial amount of products that came from Indonesia, so it's determined a Chinese product. That's very interesting, because it means the input of labor does not determine the outcome of your product. So be careful. You can take a bunch of things you buy from China and try to pack it somewhere else, and that does not constitute that you've reconstructed that product. However, that only is relevant if you ship over $800. And here's the tricky part. Because it's so new, because it's so rushed, because the only line that exempts China from the 321 is just right there at the bottom of an executive order, now you have the ability to kind of worm through it. And that's where having a near shore fulfillment center becomes heaven, because you can still source from China, you can source from all the other places that might have tariffs, push them into a market with better conditions, and who knows, they might seal this loophole later, so don't hold me to it. But for right now, you can ship them there. Let's say you ship a pallet, right? You don't want to get too much stuff. So I buy like 500 brushes, or I buy some of our other products we've got in there. I buy like 500 of this, or 500 lights, or anything like that. And then I put them in a fulfillment center. Malaysia has a duty-free fulfillment center in Johor Bahru. You can go online and look them up. You can actually buy their services online, and you can actually go and get their address. Besco, we have the same here in Kazakhstan. We have a nearshore fulfillment center where we can take in product, put it inside of our shelves, and then we can push product to your customer one at a time. The delivery time basically boils down to about 3 to 4 days for most markets, but there are also the same type of facilities in Europe. And you can actually push product into a country in Europe, find someone who has these open rules, the tariffs are low, and then push the minimum value back to the United States. That's a pretty interesting proposition. And most packages from places in Europe, from France or whatever, can reach the US in 2 to 3 days. Express mail can sometimes reach even just the next day. So it's an awesome way to do this. Awesome way to still be able to source from the world and then push it into a space. So I want you to go online and I'll tell you how to do this. You want to go online and you want to look at the fulfillment centers in other countries. All you have to do is set up an account online. And then once you set up an account, ship the product there, push it out. There are companies like, I don't want to name them per se because they are competitors, but it's okay. ShipBob. There's several other countries. It's the one that comes to mind off the back, but there's tons of what they call 3PL, third-party logistics companies that exist all around the world that are willing to do this for you. And I know that you probably came into this video thinking that I was going to tell you about 10 other websites. No, you can still use the same websites. You can still use the same process, but do it a different way. Don't ship to your house, don't ship to your warehouse, and do not ship directly to Amazon.com FBA services if you want to be able to cut the tariffs, save the money, and still be inexpensive. And remember, the last part about this that just makes it so awesome is that when you ship from the 3PL, the person paying for the shipping is your customer, not you. So the price still goes back to them. You're only paying to get your product from where it is back into the country of low tariffs, and then it goes back into the United States without that same. Now, I hope that helped. It should be awesome and wonderful. We're here in Kazakhstan. I always like to remind at the end of every video because the channel is called The Chairman at Besco. So I've got to remind you about Besco. We solved a lot of these problems already. Been here for 7 years in Kazakhstan, literally just solving these problems, just identifying ways to bring products from all around the region. We don't bring everything from China. We bring towels from Uzbekistan. We bring cocoa butter and shea butter from Ghana, but we always consolidate it in the place where it can rest easy and get into the United States under an easy price. That's why we set our minimums to $300. So our MOQ is only $300 because we want you to order consistently under $800. And Kazakhstan, if I didn't mention it, it's a place of neutrality. It's the Switzerland of the East. It has to be peaceful. Even in the midst of horrible wars, it has to remain peaceful. It didn't in World War II, but if we ever had something really bad happen, it still does. The United States has a joint military agreement with Kazakhstan, and there's no signs that they will ever be against them. So even Mark Rubio, our new Secretary of State, on the first day before his being sworn in, he actually mentioned that restrictions for trade should be removed from Kazakhstan, not placed on it. It's a hotbed. It's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful place to do business and a wonderful place to do sourcing. So maybe you'll give it a thought. You'll check out our webinar on this. It's inside the comments that has to do with telling you how we at Besco actually help you to conquer all of this. But until then, I hope I've given you some nuggets that you can research and some things that you can think about so that you can increase your sourcing, because above all else, we want you to be successful. We want you to make money. We want you to achieve your goals. And I really hope to help. I'll see you next time.